Dan Hooker. First of all, what a fucking name. And this the whole time was like, he's going really hard for Hooker. Yeah, it was. But he took a beating. Alex, how do you pronounce his last name? Caceres. Oh, it was a split decision, though, from 9-28.
Alright, you guys.
No.
If you want to start.
We're good?
Turn my phone off so it doesn't.
Oh, I just killed that.
Oh, thank you. Did I get that fly? I just got a fly from Daria.
Oh, stop.
Good.
Yeah.
This is Marcus Corva with MMAnytt, and we got Daria Barnatis with us as per usual, and as a guest today, Mac Danzig. How are you, Mac?
Good.
Welcome.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
How's the afterlife of a long and prosperous fight career?
It's rough. It's a rough transition unless you've got everything set up already, or you're one of the few who really made a lot of money and were smart about your money in the sport. It's hard. It's hard getting work going and making sure that I know exactly what it is that I want to do before I commit to it. So I've kind of got my hands in a lot of different pots right now. I'm doing a little bit of this, a little bit of that, trying to not say no to any opportunities as they come by, and just trying to support my kid and make it happen. So it's been rough, but I'm not complaining. There's a lot of opportunities I have, so I'm still trying to move forward with them.
You have a 6-year-old daughter now, right?
She's gonna be 6 in November. Yeah.
Nova.
Yeah.
Happy birthday. What's her name?
Nova.
Yeah. That's pretty.
Yeah.
And you're a photographer as well.
Yeah.
Would you consider yourself a photographer by trade?
It's getting to that point, but it's another one of those things. It's a hustle. It's like a freelance hustle.
Right.
And I'm not the best networker. I'm not the best people person. I'm not all over the internet trying to promote myself, and so that kind of hurts me. But yeah, I mean, I love photography, and I've been picking up all kinds of different photography lately. I've always done nature photography and wildlife photography, and the reason why I wasn't able to do those that much is because they involve a great amount of traveling, and I have a little daughter, and I can't take her with me,
right.
And like all the logistical problems of that, and I don't have the money to just say, okay, I'm gonna go to Montana for 3 weeks. I'm gonna go to Yellowstone. I'm just gonna do this and that. You can't really do that unless you've got disposable income. So I pushed it all aside for a while, but now things have been starting to happen slowly again. I actually was just in the Yukon, near the edge of the southern part of the Arctic Circle, and
really
in the Tombstone Mountain Range. Doing some pretty cool photography and assisting this professional photographer with his group tour. So I'm really good friends with this guy named Mark Adamus, who's like one of the best landscape photographers out there. Anyway, he takes like a group of like 8 people out. We helicopter out into this remote mountain range, and he shows them like where to shoot, and helps them with their photography, and like shows them these great places that they wouldn't have been able to find otherwise. And I'm there like assisting that, helping the drive, carrying everything, being the Sherpa, and then also helping people out too with technical photography stuff like that. And yeah, so that was cool, and that was an awesome experience. I was gone for about 2 weeks, which is the longest I've ever been away from my kid.
Wow.
Before.
Really? 2 weeks?
Yeah, it was
after a long fight career.
Yeah.
When you said photography, I was like, oh, like he's doing MMA photography.
Right.
So this is not at all related to MMA.
No, it never was. It was actually my balance. It was the way I like found a balance between being in the gym and grinding it out all the time, and then having the thing that I really like to do, which
something
is
to just relax and get your mind off.
Yeah, and
fighting.
I love being in remote places, and I love being in nature, and I love being like really, really totally out in nature, not just like, oh yeah, I went to the national park and went to the campground, the scenic overlook, and there's other people around, there's a gift shop. Like I don't do that. Like I go to like the real remote places, and that's what I like. And so I wasn't able to do it that much for the past few years because it was just hard for me to get out and do it. But Yeah, so lately I've been taking pretty much any photography gig I can get, which includes like everything, you know, like headshots and, you know what I mean? Like I'm doing all kinds of stuff that I would have never done before. Like people would ask me, can you do my headshots? Can you shoot my wedding? I'm like I'm insulted. Now I'm like, yeah.
Okay, sure.
I'll do it. Yeah.
That's really funny.
Yeah.
What?
Do you need headshots?
I do. Can you
Yeah.
That's
Gotcha.
it, guys.
I
Mac
gotcha.
Danzig, headshots.
So and I've heard from the guys at PKG, and I know from training with you as well, you know, the transition into potentially being a coach.
Yeah.
I can see you making a great career as a coach just from your knowledge and way of thinking as well. You have the photography. You've actually been credited for martial arts on Nickelodeon.
Yeah.
That's right.
Yeah, my closest friend is the creator of 2 animated series that have been on Nickelodeon. They're kind of like anime martial arts type of series,
So
you know.
cool.
Yeah. And so I did a little bit of work for them one time, and so yeah, I've got that. But I'm looking, you know, I've got friends that are involved in stunt work and stuff, and I'm always open for that. You know, like I said, I'm just kind of doing a little bit of everything. I've also did some refereeing lately.
I think I saw you at the U of MMA.
Yeah.
I was like, is that Mac Danzig and Frank Trigg and all the UFC stars?
Yeah.
So is it more your goal to stay in and around the sport and to still be involved in something that you once loved, or would you rather just go straight for photography and get out of this world?
Well, if I really had it my way, I would be like working for BBC, shooting either stills or video of like wildlife and rainforests and remote places and stuff. That's like my dream job. You know what I mean? If I could do anything that I wanted to do, I would be like in a hide waiting for weeks for like the polar bear to come out of hibernation and getting that shot, you know? That's what I would love to do. But and answer your question, I mean, I love coaching fighters and I love teaching just regular people MMA, you know, like whether they want to just get in shape or, you know, they want to learn the art or a little bit of both, or, you know, also fighters that want to compete. I love watching people improve, and I think like teaching has, especially now that I've retired, has given me a chance to see like a whole new side of the sport that I always, you know, participated in. It's just understanding strategy, understanding people's mindsets, and I see a lot of people making mentally like the same mistakes that I made, and I'm able to correct it now. I feel like I could be a really good coach. It's just, you know, and I'm coaching some good fighters right now, and it's really rewarding. But the only thing with that is it's kind of like they're not getting paid anything, you know what I mean? So they can't really pay me much, and then because of that, I mean, it's not about the money to me, but then, you know, when you gotta live, you gotta support your kid, you gotta pay the bills, and so the time that I have, you know, allocating that to things that are lucrative, and at the same time training fighters, you know, that's what I'm trying to figure out. But yeah, so far so good, and yeah, if I get a chance anytime that I can, I'm open to train up and coming fighters. So.
Still have the itch? Do you ever still have the should I want more?
I just started feeling it again, and yeah, it's funny you mentioned that, because I started thinking like, man, like you know, I got back in there and started sparring more often, and I'm like, I wonder if I still got it, and then you know, I do still kind of have it, but it would be pretty rough to work myself completely back into being in top mental and physical shape. And also with retiring publicly and making like a public announcement about it like that, I kind of feel like it would kind of be weird to just jump right back in within a year and be like, yeah, so anyway, I'm back.
Well, there's Brett Favre.
Yeah, sure. I know. It's become a theme with professional athletes, especially like boxers. You know,
right,
I remember when Sugar Ray Leonard retired when I was a little kid. I was like, oh my goodness, Sugar Ray Leonard retired. Like, I can't believe it. And then he was fighting like a year or two later, and then he retired again, and then he came back again. And when he came back again, he was getting slapped around by like Hector Camacho and stuff. And I'm just like, man, like what? You know,
Stay retired.
Exactly. So hopefully I'll be able to
I feel like you're still young enough to have a good comeback, though.
Yeah, possibly.
And
I just the reason why I retired when it came down to it. I mean, there was a lot of reasons, but
yeah, what was the main reason?
The main reason was concussions, and so because of that, I'm like very like leery about just jumping back in there, and so.
And a lot of times, guys I've spoken to, from Stephen Quadros, who's been around the game forever, and people say that the itch, and obviously I know it as well, and it's your speed will go, your aggression will go, and everything else goes except from your pride. And that adrenaline rush of I do well in training,
right?
So and like the examples like you gave, Sugar Ray Leonard or Muhammad Ali, we see the sad truth after that, and you wrote an amazing letter. For you that haven't read it, go online and read Mac Danzig's official retirement letter, because it's a worth a read, and it's very honest, and I really enjoyed reading it. Do you feel any effects of the fighting?
Yeah, I mean that's what spelled the end for me. Like right around the time. The 2013 was a very, very hard year for me. It was a hard year for me on so many levels. And what was happening was I had built up this momentum training with my trainer Rico Ciparelli, and I was starting to learn all these new things and starting to fill all these gaps that were in my game. And I was pretty convinced that I had at least 4 or 5 more years left in me. And I felt physically very good, and then something happened 2013. I all of a sudden, after years and years, 12 or 13 years of sparring regularly, I was no longer able to take a shot anymore. I was always a little, we're fighters. We have to worry about taking too many shots and having concussions, and like if you get really hurt in practice, you should not spar for a few weeks. But
right.
I started getting dropped regularly from not even that big of shots. I was never someone with a weak chin.
No, definitely
I always
not.
I could take a shot, and I pride myself on having good defense, but if I had to take a shot, I would. And it was never a huge issue. And now in 2013, it was like, man, I was getting knocked out in practice, and I got knocked out a week and a half before I fought Melvin Gillard, and I had gotten knocked out like a month before that in practice, and this had never happened to me before. I wasn't one of those guys.
Yeah, I actually heard about it. It was an amateur kickboxer, right?
Yeah,
and that's what I heard. And obviously, you want to talk about it before a fight, and heard it. And I've trained with him for a long time and had wars in the ring, and definitely, like you said, you can take a punch, and not just in the training. Matt will go in sparring, but your fights as well. Like you've taken some hard shots and walked straight through in fights too.
I think you see that quite often. You see it with boxers, and we see it with MMA fighters too. You take shots for a while, and there are some guys that just have an iron chin. I wouldn't say I was necessarily one of those guys, like with a cement head that you just can't knock out. But I had a good chin, and you see it though all the time. We saw it with Chuck Liddell. I mean, that guy could take the kitchen sink to the head, and he would just keep lumbering forward and throwing his left hook and everything. And then all it took was one time, and bam, he was out. And who knows what happened in sparring before that, but after that he had a button now, and you were able to knock him out if you hit him on the chin. And that's happened to a lot of guys. I know guys for years you just couldn't hurt them. I mean, I used to spar with Sam Stout, and I would hit this guy with everything. His head would snap back, and he just keep coming forward and keep doing what he does. And I mean, I'm not saying by any means, I'm not saying Sam's lost his chin, because I don't know, but I do know that he did get TKO'd, and he's starting, you know what I mean? After a while, it happens to everybody. And I'm just surprised it hasn't happened to Nick Diaz yet, because he just takes a lot of shots. He does
take a lot of damage.
But yeah, he's able to
we talked about this a couple weeks ago. How you were saying it's a literal thing. It's not. It's not some sort of... it's been proven.
It's, I guess, anything, it really is a theory, but it's been proven that once you've had a concussion, the damage on the brain, actually, it's now easier for it, like you said, it's a button almost where you switch on or switch off. So it's a phenomenon. It's nothing, like, you don't feel your stamina's good enough, or you got to work on your left hook. Those things you can work on.
Yeah.
Right.
Chin you can't work on.
Yeah, exactly. And so yeah, going into the Melvin fight, the reason why I fought so hesitant the way that I did is because I knew in the back of my mind, if I get hit, especially this guy. I mean, Melvin hits hard. You know,
Yeah.
like that's the one thing he's got is like really, really hard punches. And I was like, you know, I know if he hits me, like I could be in trouble. And so that's what I was worried about. And you know, that's what ended up happening. And then after that, I just took some time off, and I realized, like, man, the way I'm fighting now, even if someone isn't as good as me, if they land the shot, they could get the win. You know, it's not even, you know, it's not even about just who is better anymore. It's like I've got this definite weakness, and so I dealt with that going into my next fight, and I fought Joe Lozon. And I mean, the utmost respect for that guy. He's a great fighter, he's a great person, he's a serious world-class fighter. But I mean, I must say, if I have 15 minutes, it's not like I just walked in there and slipped on a banana peel and got submitted in 10 seconds or something. I had 15 minutes to do something, and I did not. And like, he completely dominated most of the fight, and that was like a good wake-up call for me. Like, hey, I've slowed down. I'm not as competitive as I used to be. The drive just isn't there. I've dug for it deep so many times, and if you lose to someone like Joe, it does not. I mean, Joe's great, but if you lose to him, you're definitely not. You know, I want to be like top 10 in the world. You know what I mean?
Right.
I want to be a world beater. I want to be in there like 3 or 4 wins away from a title shot, and that kind of like, you know, told me, hey, you know, this is probably it. So yeah, and it was. So.
And you know, when someone says Mac Danzig, you're associated with the UFC, although you're a 4-time King of the Cage champion as well.
Mm-hmm.
But your name is associated with the UFC. It's not. We're talking about it before as well. How there's so many fighters in the UFC right now, but especially the early birds, like you said, Chuck Liddell, and you say Chuck Liddell, anyone knows who that is, and Ultimate Six, tough champ, and you know, Mac Danzig is associated with the UFC, and now, you know, retiring the way. By the way, did you see Wanderlei Silva's retirement?
Yeah, I just saw it. Yeah, I watched the whole video that he put up. Yeah.
For you that haven't seen it, it's a pretty interesting
definitely
speech.
go watch it.
Yeah.
What's your opinion on that?
Yeah, you know, I went through a few different emotions as I was watching it. Like, at first, I was kind of like, okay, like, this is a guy who's, you know, at the moment he's bitter because of this and that, and I was kind of like, yeah, you know, I hear what you're saying, man, but we all put ourselves on the line like that, and we all know that there's no retirement plan, and we do it anyway, and this is what we do. So you shouldn't really complain about it. But then the stuff that he said, he really did get his point across, and I think it was incredibly valiant what he did and what he said, and the way that he put it out there, and the way they had someone put together a good video like that. It was it was very powerful, and I think that it's important that fighters stand up and say something. And we're in a situation right now where one organization runs the show, and they run it, and they do a lot of great things. They made the sport what it is, but at the same time, it's like, if anyone has anything negative to say, or if anyone feels like they're being treated unfairly, the UFC is always like, hey, the door's right there. You know what I mean? Goodbye.
They don't ever try to keep anybody.
Yeah, and I mean, they'll bend over backwards if someone's making money for them. It's funny that Quentin Jackson, of all people, is sympathizing with Wanderlei, because he was the one who's gotten his ass saved by the UFC so many times.
Right.
You know what I mean? I don't know any other fighter who could have their picture on TMZ, like laying like flat, spread eagle on their stomach in the middle of the street with cops with their weapons drawn after he took his Rampage mobile and like went on a rampage and drove on the wrong side of the street and everything, you know. And they went out of their way to like bail him out of jail and like downplay what he did and everything. and then Miguel Torres makes a joke that was like referring to some TV show, a line in a TV show. Yeah, it was in bad taste or whatever, but they're like, "Oh, you're cut." And then like when they bring him back, they're like, "And now you got to fight this kid that we know is gonna kill you." You know what I mean? It's
right.
So. I don't know. I thought though that he came across really well in a lot of ways, and I think it's important that fighters get together, and I don't think we're going to see a union anytime soon.
Yeah.
But I think that down the line it's inevitable because they've got to get together, and it can't just be the guys like the Jason Millers and like the guys that have been slighted by the UFC and have severed ties completely. It can't be just them. It's got to be people within the organization, and the UFC plays a really hardball game, and so it's scary, and no one wants to lose their contract, and no one wants to lose the spot that they worked so hard to get to, and that's why we have the situation that we have right now where people are keeping their mouths shut about stuff. But they made examples out of a lot of people. I mean, all the way back to Roger Huerta. Yeah. He was like their golden boy. They were feeding him easy fights and stuff, and like building him up and got him on the cover of front of Sports Illustrated and everything. And he made some remarks in an interview, and they're like, "See ya."
That was that.
So, yeah.
What do you think about the future of MMA and the organizations that are out there? Would you like to see changes within the UFC? Do you think that if you were to go back, you would go back to a different organization for certain reasons? What would you like to see change?
I would like to see the fighters being taken care of with some sort of a union. That's what I would like to see, and I would like to see the UFC continue to do what they're doing, which is benefiting from all the chances that they've taken, and continue to bask in the money that they're making, because they put it up and they work hard and they make the events and they make the sport. But I want to see the fighters get taken care of. I don't want... See, what I went through, not just retiring, but years leading up to my retirement. I mean, it's no secret. I had times when I lost a few in a row, and people were talking about me going to get cut. I can't believe they haven't cut this guy. He lost 2 in a row. Wait, he lost 3 in a row.
Right.
And then, like that was like my career in the UFC was like always, oh no, can't lose this fight. I'll lose my job. If I lose my job, I can't support my kid. Oh no, I'm worried about this. What am I going to do? What am I going to do? And that worry in the back of my mind, made it way more stressful than it had to be. And I didn't have a great time in my career throughout most of it, because I was always worried about that. And if you take that away and take that worry away, then you have people that are going to compete to their full potential, and you're going to have people that are positive and feel honored to be involved in the sport, rather than people that are, just worried and negative, and then they get cut, and then all they do is talk bad about the UFC, and Dana talks bad about them, and it's like this negative thing. We don't need that. Like, the UFC can make their billions, and the fighters can be taken care of. We can do it. We can make it happen. It's just, whether or not everybody wants to be on the same page, I guess.
So if you look at NFL and MLB, Major League Baseball. I gotta learn the acronyms in the US. And basketball players, and they have a union in place, right? And they make tons of money, more than to the point now. It's the opposite. It's like, right, that's just ridiculous.
It's ridiculous.
Of course. Yeah.
And then you have MMA fighters, and obviously I'm a bit biased, but work harder than most athletes and take a lot more risks than most athletes.
More physical damage, potential mental damage. You can hurt your brain, and you can have serious injuries that affect you for the rest of your life.
And make... No, it's not. It's ridiculous. You make more almost in high school if you're an American football player than some MMA.
A parcel of what.
So and then you talk about union, but MMA, and I agree. But I completely think it would be beneficial for the fighters, obviously. But just like you said, just know that you have that safety net under you.
Yeah.
But boxing tried it for a long time, and it was almost like someone almost received a phone call late at night and said you should stop what you're doing. and all
Right.
of a sudden it just kind of fizzled out.
Yeah.
It was
But
gone.
big names, like you said, that are in the organization now, your Anderson Silva, your
Yeah.
Cain Velasquez,
Yeah.
whatever. But like we said,
Yeah.
what happens if they would try to go with that idea?
From what I've heard Dana White say, I think he has the kind of attitude like, all of you are replaceable, all of you are expendable,
Yeah.
and like he says it with everyone, and I think he truly and honestly has that attitude. I don't think it's so much of a front. Am I saying that if Ronda Rousey stuck up, would he kick? No, I think he holds some very near and dear to his heart because of the deepness of that he's making their pocket. But I think that he has his hard ass exterior that makes these fighters say, okay, let me just take my money and keep my mouth shut.
Yeah, and most do, and most will. And I mean, if you're in a situation where you're making like 30-40 grand a year fighting, and you're fighting on prelims, and you're winning and getting by, and
Right.
and that second place organization out there is not going to give you that, and the competition is going to be just as hard.
That too.
It's
Yeah.
like you're going to keep your mouth shut and toe the line, and that's what people do in corporations. That's what people do in all kinds of jobs, and that's a situation that we have here. And I think unfortunately, like it turns into like anti-UFC stuff. I don't think we have to be anti-UFC.
No.
No. And you guys aren't. I'm just
Right.
saying like what happens with a lot of the fighters. Like they're all of a sudden they did Jason Millers and the Quentin Jacksons and stuff, like they turn around, they're like, because they're bitter because they've been slighted, and they feel bad about it. But I don't think we need to be anti-UFC. I think we need to just be pro-fighter and
absolutely,
and support the fighter and support these people and let them have like an out. Let them be able to walk away from this respectably instead of putting them through all kinds of stuff. Like if I didn't have a daughter, I probably wouldn't have retired, and I'd be fighting, for whatever amount of money that I could still right now, trying to get paid and just disregarding my health. My daughter's the main reason why I took a look at that and said, okay, I'm gonna step back because I want to be there for her. I don't want to be, have Alzheimer's and Parkinson's and whatever else when I'm in my 50s and 60s.
And we had someone like Mark Hunt yesterday who fought, and knockout. He knocked him out and walked off again like he's done before.
Right.
And then you see someone like that who's been way before UFC, even took more damage to the head from all the K1 fights that he's had. And it's funny, some people you can see way earlier on in their career they haven't taken half the amount of punishment to the head.
Right.
As someone like Mark Hunt, completely fine when you speak him and Ray Sefo when you speak to them. And he, if you look at his MMA record, now he's 10-8, and his top 10 heavyweight division in the UFC.
It's crazy, isn't it?
And like you said you had a few losses. You worried about you being cut. I think Mac Danzig would have been allowed a few extra losses on their card as well, because you had 3 fight of the night.
I think that's a good point to
an
prove.
excited fighting. Same with Dan Hardy that you trained with for a long time as well.
Right.
How important? So you look at the way fights happen. A lot of times now in the UFC, fights happen on Twitter.
Yeah.
Someone writes to someone and they
Right.
respond, and Dana likes that.
Yeah.
Do you think a union or I don't even know what it, maybe just a body for the fighters would help? Do you feel like the ranking system now is right or fair, or do you think a body would help for that too?
Yeah, it's hard to say. I think the ranking system that has been come up with now is just nonsense. I think it was, and I'm not always in disagreement with the rankings. I'm not saying this because I look at the rankings and I'm like, wait a minute, why is he number 5 and why is he number 2? It's not that. It's just the ranking system itself was based on some weird algorithm that some fan came up with, and they decided to make some independent website, and then the UFC has just adopted that and just taken that and run with it. And it's like, don't you guys want to? I just don't believe in the current ranking system, and but I think, like, if there was a union or something like that going on, so, someone just looking out for the interest of the fighters, it would just be just be a better situation overall, and someone regulating the amount of pay that the guys get. Just have it be regulated. So that you know exactly what you're signing up for.
Right.
And be an employee of the union rather than an independent contractor.
It's like when you go to school to become a teacher, you know that you're going to make X, Y, and Z every year. A minimum of X, Y, and Z. When you go into the NFL or the NBA or the MLB, whatever it may be, you know you're going to be able to at least sustain average living and have a family.
For sure.
You're a professional athlete.
Yeah.
Even if you are fourth string quarterback or a bench warmer.
Yeah.
There are no bench warmers in MMA.
Yeah.
And I'm not talking about the UFC, I'm talking about MMA as a whole.
Yeah.
There are no bench warmers. If you're at the bottom of the crop and you get cut, that's it. There's no retirement fund, there's no nothing. And I think that maybe even the minimum, the standard of what fighters should make should be raised in general, all around.
Yeah. I mean, take someone who's making $800,000 plus, I don't know, like whatever cut of their pay-per-view, and cut that down to $600,000 plus their cut of their pay-per-view, and then take the rest of that out and sprinkle it amongst the lower level guys. Like, even it up.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I understand John Jones is selling the pay-per-view, but he's selling the pay-per-view, one, because he's an amazing fighter, but two, because they've put all their promotional eggs into one basket, and they've said this event is about John Jones versus blah blah blah, and so it's like, start promoting the other guys, and then it'll be something good for everybody, because everyone will get their fair share. Everyone will get their shot at having an opportunity to make a name for themselves, instead of just this idea of waiting for the next big thing all the time. Like, everybody's waiting for, like, who's going to be the next Conor McGregor, and, like, here he comes. Okay, we got this guy. All of a sudden he's a big star. This type of mentality of promoting and just being very fickle and getting rid of guys that lose a couple fights. Oh, that fight was boring. Okay, let's cut him.
Right.
It's like man, you guys have so many fighters on contract. Like, what? Why are you always just looking for the next big thing? Like help build everybody. Give everybody a chance to promote the event. With their skills. And if somebody's not good enough, then they're not good enough. But you don't have to just have this big giant spread of difference, and boxing's even worse. I mean, boxing is like, you've got guys making dozens of millions of dollars, and then you got guys in the undercard fighting for like $4,000 or something. It's crazy.
You mentioned Conor McGregor. What's your opinion? What do you think about the hype of Conor McGregor?
I think it's hard for me to say. He is very good. He's unproven though. He has a great attitude in the ring though. He definitely took a page out of the Diaz brothers' books when he developed his style and his game plan.
Right.
Like, he's got that, and you can see their influence in his fighting, which was fun for me to see, because I hadn't seen that yet. Now we're at the point where MMA has developed into such a big thing with a history now, that fighters are emulating other fighters. Good fighters are emulating other good fighters,
right,
and that's pretty crazy. You can see their influence in him. I don't know what to say. I'm not going to go out and say, oh, he's completely unproven and he's no good. He's definitely good, but no, he hasn't been put in a war. You know what I mean? He hasn't been, like, tested, really. You know, like, he hasn't been tested yet. So I think they're just going to continue to try to build him up. Poirier's a very, very tough opponent, so we'll see what happens with that. But I think this next fight is like, this is what's gonna, either make or break him. He's either gonna rise to the occasion.
I agree. I think it's one of the hardest fights they've given himself.
Yeah, but if you look at the interviews beforehand and the press conferences so far, Conor McGregor is definitely winning that part, because Poirier is a pretty quiet guy.
Yeah.
If you would find someone like Conor, it was in your face the whole time, insulting you, saying, how would you react? How would you do it?
I would like to think that I would just ignore it and just know that I'm gonna do what I'm gonna do. But there are certain guys that I would go ahead and play the game with. It just depends.
You had some wars, right? Like verbal wars.
Only
with
one
Cerrone.
time. Only one time, and it was with Cerrone. And what it was
What?
yeah. This is a while ago. This is before Cerrone like really made a name for himself. He came right out of the WEC, and you know what it was? I was just tired of. I'm tired of gimmicks in MMA. Like, I don't like people wearing chains around their necks and howling at the moon when they show up to the ring. I don't like, like somebody calling themselves a cowboy and wearing a cowboy hat and like, oh, this is my gimmick, this is my gimmick or whatever. Like, I think that's like fine for pro wrestling, but if this is who you are, if you're like, if you really are this person, then yeah, you can kind of play it up a little bit, but I don't know, like, how many guys, especially like 3 or 4 years ago, had purple mohawks? It's like, come on, guys, like don't just latch onto a gimmick. And so he had a little feud with a friend of mine, Cole Miller, and they were like going back and forth. And so, like, anytime someone says something about one of my friends, I'm like, yeah, all right, there's lines drawn now.
You get
defensive.
So,
yeah, I got a little defensive. And so I said something on Twitter without the intention of marketing a fight. But I was like, I said something along the lines of, I guess all you have to do is wear a cowboy hat and like get yourself a gimmick, and all of a sudden you've worked yourself into like main card status. Because I didn't feel like at the time. He's proved himself. He's an amazing fighter. I don't know much about him as a person. I don't really care to know anything about him as a person. But as a fighter, he's excellent. He's gotten better. But at the time, he was completely unproven, in my opinion. And he was just like coming right out of the WEC. He was like win loss. And then he won a couple. He fought for the title. But like he to me, he wasn't. He was still like a rookie. And like all of a sudden, he's making all these waves, and I was like, man, so I said something about him, and he got all defensive, and then they loved it, and they set up a fight, and I was like, really? I was like, all right, I'll take the fight, and then I got hurt. I got hurt.
Right, that popped out.
Yeah, it wasn't the rib. What happened was the muscles that attach from the hip onto the abdomen. There's like 3 layers of muscles. And the lowermost layer got completely torn, and the top layers were still intact. And so they couldn't sew and do like surgery on the muscle or anything. There was nothing they could do, and they couldn't give me a cortisone shot. And it was just like severe pain. It was like a weird freak type of injury. So I had to pull out in the middle of training camp. It's like there's like a month left to the fight.
Man, just that as well. I was part of that training camp.
Were you really?
Mac kept coming in training with that, just to understand his pain threshold. He kept on coming in training and trying to pull through sparring and everything with that. And people, anyone who's ever had just a crack on the rib or a popped rib knows how painful that is.
Yeah.
This muscle was clean off.
Yeah, and what I had already planned on that week, the week that it happened, the following week I was planning on training in Las Vegas with Gray, who was still living out there at the time. So I went out to Vegas, and while I was there, I was like, okay, I'm gonna do some cardio Monday morning, do what I can, and then I'm gonna go see the only doctor that I really know and trust, who lives in Vegas, and then he'll tell me what he thinks. I'll get the MRI, and then we'll decide what's going to happen from here, and if I can get a cortisone shot or something. And I saw him on Monday, and Tuesday morning he's like, he got the MRI results that night, and he called me up that night on his cell phone. He's like you can't fight. He's like, I'm gonna have to pull you out of this fight. He's like, there's nothing we can do. And I was just like, so all right. And so like I ended up. It was crazy. Like I stayed one more night at Gray's house, and then Wednesday night I remember just driving in the middle of the night. I had this weird, like half of me was like completely devastated that like I all this training time and everything put into this camp was destroyed now, and I couldn't fight, and I wasn't gonna get paid, and I had already waited like months and months just to fight, and I was like, oh no. And then the other half of me was like, I've been taking photos for so long, and I had my camera with me. And so I drove at 3 a.m. I drove out to Death Valley, and I got there right as the sun was rising, and like I stayed in Death Valley, and I took some of the best photos that I've ever taken before.
That is crazy.
So it was I was so tired driving back from that in the middle of the day. I had to like slap myself in the face a few times just to just to not like drive off a ravine or something,
or into Death Valley.
Like Death Valley's a crazy place. There's all kinds of mountains. It's a lot more diverse than people know. There's really high mountains, cold weather. There's all kinds of different stuff. I won't go on about it because that's not what people are interested in.
Tune into National Geo.
But Death Valley is awesome. It's an incredible place. It's not just desert. There's so much cool stuff there. So.
Do you feel that that's a fight you wish would have happened?
You know what? At the time, I do. That would have been really cool. You know, because I feel like I was having a hard time in training camp too, dealing with people with his length and reach, and then I had just turned a corner and I just started to get it, and it started to work, and I felt really good about that fight. I feel like he's not one of those guys who deals well with a good boxer. You know what I mean? Like a guy that's willing to step in and hit him. Like the Paul Kelly kid from England.
Yeah. Crazy guy.
He gave Cerrone a lot of problems in the beginning because he was timing him and just stepping in every time Cerrone tried to throw. He'd step in with punches, and he just ended up getting taken down and submitted by Cerrone, who's very underrated on the ground. His ground is really good, Cerrone's ground. So I feel like I could have dealt with his ground game, unlike Paul Kelly, and I feel like I could have done exactly what Paul Kelly did or better, stand up. But over the years, though, he improved greatly, and so like I feel like as the years went on, you know, especially while I was on my way out and he's still on his way up, like it would have been a much tougher fight, but like at the time, like I feel like I would have handled it especially well, but yeah, oh well, you know, I've gotten a chance to fight a lot of great fighters, so it's all right, you know. I'm not too worried about it.
Let me ask you this.
Yeah.
Knowing what you know now about the UFC and the way that MMA and the UFC especially works with marketing and promoting yourself, if you were to say come out of retirement and go back, would you do more with your marketing and with your PR in trying to make a name for yourself bigger than what you had before?
That's a very good question. You know, on one hand, I think that would be a good idea for me, because I did learn a lot about the way that I was such a recluse and I stayed away from promoting myself and everything. It really hurt me, and it hurt me in the end too, because, you know, if you don't promote yourself and you're not out there like making noise all the time, people forget about you. And that's kind of what happened to me, you know. And now that I retired, it's like a lot of my stock has been lost. But if being completely honest about it, I don't think I could do it any other way. I don't feel right, like, being a faker and going out there and, like, don't get me wrong, if I have something to say and it's genuine, it's from the heart,
right,
or I have there's something about me that I want to let out,
right,
that works. But for the most part, I'm a reserved person and I'm quiet, and it just felt so disingenuous, so weird to go out and try to be someone that I'm not. That was the whole reason why I got into this, because it's you. It's just you
real.
in there. It's you and your opponent, and it's real. And otherwise, I would have done a bunch of steroids and gotten into pro wrestling. If I wanted to be like, you know, talking all kinds of crap and getting on the mic and challenging people and like obtaining some sort of gimmick and being the good guy and then being the bad guy the next fight. Like, if I wanted to go through all that, I would have gotten to pro wrestling. I got into this stuff because it was the antithesis of that. And
right.
I don't think I could do it any other way. So if I ever went back to it, I couldn't be anyone other than myself, you know. And as far as making like promoting fights off of like conflict between two fighters.
Right.
I don't agree with that at all. To me, like if me and somebody have a serious problem, and we're gonna be all macho about it, well then fine, let's do it in the gym and let's do it behind closed doors. Or if we really hate each other, I'll see you when I see you, man. You know what I mean? Wherever it is. But I don't want someone that I hate or that I have a real problem with to be able to compete with me in my sport. I don't want that negative energy. So if I hated someone, or if I had a real problem with them, I wouldn't want to fight them in my sport. I wouldn't want that to be for another time, another day. Almost everyone that I fought, I have a lot of respect for, and even if I don't like them as people, I mean, like, I still respect them, and I don't have any problem with them.
And Donald Serrano is one of those guys.
Well, yeah. I just don't know him. He got mad because of what I said, and then he got defensive, and so then there was like this tension between the two of us. But I don't know the guy, and I couldn't care less. I mean, like I hear stories about him, being this or being that, but I don't really know the guy. I don't care to try to know him.
If you saw him in the street, would you say hello?
No, I wouldn't say hi to him.
No, it's just like...
If he comes up to me and shakes my hand and he's genuine about it and looks me in the eye and like is like, hey, I'm cool, I don't have a problem, like I'll give him it back. You know what I mean? Like,
right.
and we can be cool. And that's a good feeling when something like that happens. When you think you have tension with someone and then they actually reach out and are like, hey, everything's cool. But I saw him at the Fighters Summit, and like I was like, oh, okay, all right, here's this guy, and I looked at him, and he just hurried up and walked past me. You know what I mean? Like, I'm not saying he backed down or anything. It wasn't a situation like that. He just avoided me, and so I was just like, whatever. But yeah, I don't know the guy. Don't know the guy. We don't really have that many mutual friends or anything, so. Yeah,
but talking about someone who's a close friend of yours, Gray is a close friend of yours, and we talked about this the button, and there's a guy who's been in some wars, taking hard punches, and now we see him get knocked out by a punch that I think it wouldn't have been a problem for Gray 2 years ago. Do you think Gray should continue fighting?
Man, I don't. I know he's told me he's gonna do at least one more.
Yeah.
I would like to see him pull back and pull away from it, because I care about him, and it's not about whether or not you're tough or whether or not you're good. He's still really, really good. He's still really, really tough. That hasn't diminished at all. What has diminished is just his ability to take those shots, and it slows your body down in other ways too. But he's an amazing fighter, and he's a capable person, and I want to see him, be a good dad for his daughter and be there, which I know he really wants to do. But part of what made Gray so tough, and part of what made him the fighter that he is today and the man that he is today, is his toughness, and his toughness is very reliant on the mentality of, what, you broke down, you lost, you had a bad fight, forget about it. I'm ready, I'm grinding, I'm on to the next. And that type of mentality is what made him who he is. So it's very hard to change a guy like that. It's very hard to get a guy like that to do what I did and be like, hey, like, this isn't cool, I'm stepping away from this.
Right.
His whole style, he's been wrestling at a high level since he was like 12 years old, like a really high level, been training really, really hard. What's made him so great is his resiliency. He's one of these guys who, both of us would be having a really hard time financially or just in our careers or whatever, we'd be down on the sport. We'd kind of be like in a bad spot, and we'd be like driving to the gym together, and I'd be like, man, I'd be all down on myself, and I suck, and I just all mad at myself, and I can't believe like I lost this fight and everything, and just mad at myself, and like, everything. And he would be dealing with the same thing, and he would never go that way. You know what I mean? He would never lean on anyone like that. He's always just like, he would have the worst training ever, or he'd get like dropped in training, and he'd just be like, all right, like don't complain about it, don't cry about it, get in there and go again the next day. And so it's hard to get a guy like him to stop, but I think he should at this point, and it's not because he's a loser. It's because he's a winner, and I want to see him continue to win in life, not and not take shots like that.
Anderson Silva coming back after a gnarly injury as well, and again being the king of kings in mixed martial arts. Looking at him, what do you think? Now that's not your head, that's not your brain. He's only had one bad knockout, but after an injury like that, would you say, if you were his friend, brother, parent, and also his fight with Nick Diaz?
Yeah, okay, so with Anderson, it's harder to tell. Yeah, I would be able to give you a definite answer if I was in the gym with him, or if I had like inside info on what he's up to. Like if I could see him spar, see the way he's reacting in sparring,
right,
and the way he's training, then I'd know. Like I know what's happened to Gray and the shots that he takes in training, and like so I know what's up with that. But with Anderson, it's hard to say. He could come back and look amazing. He could be the guy who fought Okami when he comes back, and he could tool Nick Diaz if he's, which is an incredibly hard task. He could do it.
Do you think he will?
I don't know. He just as easily he may be done. He may be completely done.
Right.
If he's done, Nick's gonna tear him apart. I don't know. I wish I knew what was going on in Anderson's training. I know what's going on in Nick's training, not because I've seen it, but I just know what he's doing, And Nick's gonna be what he always has been, but it's gonna be very interesting. We're either gonna see, like something great again from Anderson, or it's gonna be the nail in the coffin, And all it takes is one incident like that for a guy to change from young to old as a fighter overnight. It takes all it takes is one knockout or one war. And Anderson's had two of those things happen, so it should be very interesting. I don't know.
You said you had that resistance in your last fight because of knowing your injury, and maybe Anderson Silva. I mean, that was a brutal injury.
Yeah.
And it was from checking a kick, I believe, right?
Him
He threw
throwing
a
the kick.
Yeah.
And it's like every time he goes to throw that kick, it has to be subliminally going through the back of his mind, like, well, last time this happened, it bent my foot backwards.
Yeah, I broke my leg skateboarding when I was 16. I mean, it took years
Have
for
you
me.
skateboarded since?
Oh yeah, I have. I mean, I was involved in skateboarding like hardcore. I wasn't just like a skater kid. I was
Right.
I was very serious about it. So I was back on it as soon as I could. But it is in the back of your head constantly. And for years, it was in the back of my head. Even to the point where years later, when I started training, I wore this like stupid like sleeve around my thigh because I was worried about like leg kicks or something. Just like these dumb idea in my mind, like, man, I don't want to break my leg again. I wonder if it's weak there, And so yeah, you're right. It'll be in the back of his head. There's no way around that.
It's funny actually. That bone goes back stronger in the spot where it breaks.
Yeah, that's what
I've heard.
Yeah, that's what I've heard. But it's still it doesn't change the way you feel
the
about
natural.
it.
So I was gonna say, so you said from going from young to old, or from a champ to no longer a champ.
Right.
How much would you say is mental? Is it 90% mental, 80% mental?
Yeah, it's mostly mental. It really is because it totally is. It's all about how you feel and your confidence and whether or not you have confidence that dictates, like your what you're able to accomplish in the sport confidence goes a long way with that. And I think that many guys, I feel like many fighters, we're all on the same level. Like I feel like the top 50 guys maybe. Don't get me wrong. I mean, like Ben Henderson is a lot better than number 40, but I feel like every guy that's in that world class, like maybe like top 30 guys or so, they're all as good as each other pretty much. It all just depends on who's got the confidence and who really believes, who has the true belief in themselves to back up what they have physically.
Right.
You know, and I lack that greatly because my problem is I'm a thinker and I'm such a realist about everything and I'm a pessimist, and so it's like I would never give myself enough credit, and people would be like, dude, like you're good, why don't you give yourself more credit, like why don't you, you know, and I was just like, I never wanted to be the guy that was like, I'm the best ever, and then lose. You know, I didn't. I don't want to be that guy. I did not want to be that guy. So I was like extra hard on myself, and that just is what it is. Our personalities shine through in the way that we conduct ourselves, and the way that fighters fight, and that's what's interesting about fighting. You see all types of different personalities, and you see it come to life in a physical way, in a spontaneous physical way, and that's what's cool about fighting. But like, yeah, I don't know. I think if guys had confidence, mental confidence, it would be even more competitive. That's what it's about, is believing in yourself, you know.
I have one last question for you, talking about confidence, and two confident guys in your weight class, Anthony Pettis and Gil Melendez. Who do you think is going to win that fight?
Man, it's a tough one. See, like, I want to say Gil, because see, Gil is like battle proven. That's the thing about him. Anthony Pettis is like this like LeBron James-ish type of, you know, he's just so good at certain things, but I haven't seen him in many wars. The first time he fought Ben Henderson, that was very impressive. It proved, one, that he could go 5 rounds, and 2, it proved that he could deal with like getting slowed down, getting his opportunities stuffed, and still stay competitive, and then turn the tide slowly as the fight went on.
Right.
That's a big deal. When he fought Clay Guida, Clay fought the same exact fight against him that he did against me. You know what I mean? Like, took some shots and then just decided to take him down and hold. And I saw Pettis, he didn't break, okay? He didn't break like, oh, I give up. But, like, he realized this fight is going this way, and he kind of fell into that. So that can happen to him. It's possible. You know, Guida was able to do it to him. You know, it's a very interesting fight. If Anthony doesn't pull off something dynamic, I don't think that he's strategically going to be able to keep up with Gil. I think Gil's going to keep the pressure on him and just grind him out and do what he has to do. But Anthony's always capable of landing, you know, that shot.
That one crazy shot.
Definitely, yeah. 'Cause he's a great martial artist.
I agree.
Yeah.
And but Gil, you know, confident and skill set, boxing, wrestling is a bad combination. But again, Anthony is such an athlete, so he can pull something off.
Yeah,
definitely.
And Daria got a fight coming up.
I do.
It's not me that punched her in the face. It's from training.
A sparring session
October
on Friday.
11th.
Yes.
Yes. And Mac, if anyone wants to follow you, at Mac Danzig on Twitter, right?
Mac Danzig MMA, yeah.
Danzig.
Someone in like 2008 took Mac Danzig and they posted one tweet or something, and the account's been gone since then, and I never went around to asking Twitter for it. So it's Mac Danzig MMA, yeah, and Mac Danzig MMA on Facebook too, yeah.
You are such an interesting guy to listen to,
right.
and very well spoken. Yes, you did tell me. You were like, if you just let him go, he's really interesting. Okay, so that's what I did, guys. Very good show.
Thank you, Mac, for coming on. I appreciate it.
Thank you for letting me ramble. I appreciate it.